Hello there, world of tankers, and welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at what I think might be one of the strongest Tier 8 mediums to enter World of Tanks Blitz. For a while, people have considered the Chimera, Defender Mark 1, Progetto 46 as some of the Goliaths in the tier, due to the fact that the Chimera has the alpha damage, the Progetto has the clipping potential, and the Defender kind of has incredible turret armor paired with clipping potential. All of them are really good, and I think in their each capabilities and, advantages, they're great. Today, we're going to be looking at a tank that has alpha, that has incredible turret armor, and even upper plate armor, plus mobility. This might be the best all-round medium I've ever seen. I mean, if this thing was in tier 10, it would be strong, let alone in tier 8, and it is the Vickers Mark 3. We can see it in front of us here. Looks exactly like a Vickers Light, just a little bit longer. And that's basically what it is, except it has really good armor. This is a tier 8 medium, as I mentioned. Its upper plate armor on flat is 250 mils thick. That means if you're running enhanced armor, you can get that upwards of like 260 millimeters thick, which is pretty dang impressive. So just on flat ground, you're looking at about 270. If it's using its 8 degrees of gun depression, the upper plate's around 326. That means against HE, it's about 350 effective. So it's 350 base, and then with shell normalization, it's down to like 320. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And by the way, the turret's super strong as well. 260 millimeters on the cheeks. This spot over here is upwards of 380. So yeah, the cheeks at weakest are around 280 to the 260. The mantlet is around 280 effective. I mean, what the frick? This tank is crazy. Now, there are some weak spots. If you're aiming on the lower half, you can see it's around 230 millimeters thick. But again, this is a tier 8 medium with 230 millimeters of effective armor, and that's the weakest spot when using gun depression. Now, the lower plate's pretty weak. It's only about 100 mils, but it's not weak enough to be high explosive penned by really any tanks. Even side scraping wise, it's not that bad as we can see. I mean, the side armor's not great. It's about, well, we're looking at an angled bit there. So flat side armor is about 100 millimeters. That's 100 millimeters, bruh. The heck are we looking at here? It's 80 base on the lower half and about 100 on the upper half. Again, this is a medium tank. Tier 10 mediums don't have 80 millimeters of side armor, let alone a tier 8. And it's all covered in spaced as well. So good luck high explosive penning this vehicle for the most part. The rear is pretty weak, only 30 millimeters thick. The back of the turret's only 40, but I mean, that makes sense. If you're aiming at the front of this tank, though, holy strong. Now, it does have a hatch. If you're decent at aiming, you will be able to hit the hatch. And it's freaking huge. It's very weak, only about 100 mils thick. I mean, basically any shell into that hatch and you're penning. So it does have a big weak spot. But I'm going to be honest, the armor more than enough makes up for that weak spot. And the gun itself is pretty strong as well. Let's fully equip the tank, put on everything we want there, and let's take a look at the gun. It's got 2,000 damage per minute, which is pretty average. It's the same as a Chimera, a little bit more actually. But in general, damage per minute is pretty average for a medium. The damage per shot is 320, so it hits hard. I mean, that's a pretty juicer alpha. It's got a 9-second reload. Loading standard, you have 200 mils of pen. Loading premium, you have 277 mils of APCR. That's crazy levels of penetration. And high explosive has also really good damage and pen. 400 damage per shot, giving you 2,500 effective DPM and 70 mils of pen. So this thing basically is like miniature Hess shells. That's crazy good pen for a medium with 320 alpha. So all the mechanics in terms of the gun are really good. Let's keep going down. We have the vehicle shell velocity, 1,300, and the premium is 1,500. That's crazy as well. That's tier 10 values of shell velocity. Dispersion is 0.335. Not great, but its on-movement dispersion values are really good. So you could get away with running Refined Gun if you really wanted to, but I personally think having these values much greener is better than having a little bit better base dispersion, at least if you ask me. In general, the gun is really, really nasty. It's got everything you'd want going for it. And with 8 degrees of gun depression, this thing is going to be a beast on a ridgeline. Oh yeah, I should also mention it has a top speed of 57. What? I mean, this thing has a top speed closer to light tanks than mediums. It has a pretty good power to weight of 18 on hard terrain, 15 on medium. It's not the fastest tank ever, but if you are running something like speed boost, you can get that power to weight up more than enough. Yeah, this thing just, it looks like a beast. When I saw the statistics of the vehicle, I was like, wait a sec, are we looking at a tier 10 medium here? Because it's basically a tier 10 medium armor profile with a gun that's similar alpha to a lot of tier 10 mediums. I mean, this thing is just insane. It really is. You know, if we compare the armor on that tank to what I would consider to be one of the most armored mediums in tier 8 right now, which is an Object 590. Let's see if we can find the Object 590. It's always a little tricky to find it because it's hidden. 274A, Mod 1. Let me just put on Russia. There we go. Object 590, right? This is one of the most armored mediums in tier 8 right now. And the upper plate on the 590 on flat ground is about 190 thick. So already that medium we just went over has about 70 to 80 millimeters more armor on flat. This tank has 8 degrees of gun depression. Using the gun depression, it's about 250 millimeters effective, meaning that if you have enough heat pen, you can cut through, but with heat, it's around 316. So this is a similar comparison of armor we can see. Like the turret cheeks are obviously pretty weak at 260. It's very close to the Vickers MK3 we just went over. However, the difference is the fact that the 590's gun is much worse. It's got less damage per shot at 280. Its damage per minute is basically the exact same. Its dispersion is the same, but it's got way worse pen, 275 with heat when it's 277 APCR on the other vehicle. The shell velocity is much worse at only 1,000, not 1,300. I mean, I'm looking at the mobility. It's 52 with a similar power to weight. I mean, don't get me wrong, the 590 is really strong. But I think that this Vickers is going to absolutely leave it in the dust. I mean, it just reminds me of like tier 10 mediums. When you make your way over to a tier 10 medium, you know, something like, I don't know, let's see what a good tier 10 medium, for example, would be. It just kind of reminds me something like a 62A almost, where the 62's got this really strong upper plate. It's got about 230 mils of effective armor. But think about this, right? The T62A, a vehicle that is known for having a really solid upper plate in tier 10, has about 230 millimeters of armor on flat ground, 260 if you're loading heat, okay? If we go back to tier 8, and we can actually just put on testing, and we pull up the Vickers MK3, I mean, this thing against heat and high explosive has 270 mils effective. So a tier 8 medium has more effective armor than a tier 10 medium, which is known for having effective armor. To me, that is absolutely wild. And that's without even breaking into the rest of the mechanics and capabilities. So I can tell you right now that if the tank, the Vickers MK3, comes into the game with its current state and statistics, it will be possibly one of the most overpowered mediums. I could be wrong on that. Maybe Wargaming will nerf it, and I'll obviously be I'll be sure to share my opinion on this vehicle when it does get released, letting you know everything to know. But I can tell you for a fact right now that this is easily looking like one of the best mediums in the game. Thing is a frickin' beast. As always, please consider smashing that subscribe button down below. Helps out the channel, and obviously making these videos on time as quickly as possible does take a lot of effort. So yeah, please consider smashing that subscribe button down below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.